It was first reported in Saudi Arabia in 2012 and has been making its way around the world slowly but steadily, killing nearly 450 people in the process. But the latest outbreak of MERS is in South Korea, where 27 people have died in just the last month. So are we looking at a new pandemic? Siouxsie Wiles is a microbiologist from the University of Auckland and joins me now. Siouxsie, good morning to you.
Good
Thanks
morning.
for joining us. First of all, MERS, what exactly is it?
So it's the name of the respiratory syndrome that people get when they're infected with this coronavirus that's very closely related to the one that caused SARS, another respiratory syndrome, but also closely related to the virus that causes the common cold.
Okay, so and this is one of the biggest worries, of course, because once it starts transmitting, it's probably quite easy to transmit, is it?
This one is very difficult to transmit, actually.
Good.
And
it comes from camels, doesn't it?
So it's when people get infected, it's usually with the spillover event. So the people that initially get it, they seem to have had good close contact with camels. And then when it transmits human to human, that's pretty hard, and that happens through really, really close contact. And so it's not been actually going around the world. It's been centered in the Middle East with sporadic cases outside by people who have travelled from the Middle East to those countries. But there's been very little sustained transmission in other countries, except for Korea, where it's now gone crazy. It's
and so
kind of
this
amazing.
is where we start to get really worried, when these things adjust slightly and perhaps become easier to transmit?
Right. So this is why Korea is really interesting, because it doesn't seem that that's the case. So they've had some preliminary look at the virus itself, and it doesn't look like it's changed in that way. It looks in Korea like it might have been a perfect storm between two really different things. One is that some people can become what's called super shedders. So they end up with more virus in their secretions. In this case, it's respiratory secretions, and so they spread to more people.
So coughing, things like that.
So this looks like the index case in this case is somebody who might be doing that. But also cultural practices. So in Korea, apparently people shop around for healthcare. And so what has happened is this person who was kind of a super shedder visited 4 different healthcare facilities before he was diagnosed. Also because they've never had MERS there before, he might not have told people where he'd been travelling, and so they didn't kind of know what it is.
Okay, and because he was visiting health facilities, there were people around him that were susceptible to illness, and as a result of that, we've had 27 deaths.
The other thing that happens in Korea, apparently, is that when people go into hospital, their families kind of move in with them and look after them. And this is not a good thing, because what you really need when somebody is sick with something that's transmissible is to understand how things transmit, and to do all these amazing practices that stop things transmitting. And so when you've got people kind of coming in and helping out with their relatives and they don't know how to stop stuff transmitting, that is sort of the perfect storm that's happened in Korea.
Okay, now, so people might be listening to this thinking, well, this is clearly not a pandemic, and it's not a pandemic, and so should we be using the word? But a point which is often overlooked is the fact that you can't wait until something is a pandemic to have worked out how to handle it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the real problems we have with lots of these kind of diseases is that they're really difficult to diagnose. When somebody comes in and they've got, a cough, a cold, a fever, what is it? Could it be malaria? Could it be Ebola? Could it be, could it be SARS? And so there's this huge gaping hole we have, is to really quickly diagnose people and then give them the best treatment. But usually isolating people is the best thing.
Okay, so this is not something we need to worry about here at this stage, and people are looking at it and monitoring it.
Yeah. Basically, if you've been to the Middle East or Korea now, then and you get sick, tell your doctor where you've been. That's the most important thing, is tell your doctor where you've been, so that they can figure out whether you've been exposed.
Siouxsie Wiles, thank you very much for joining us, microbiologist. Lovely seeing you. Right.